Now, let me bring in a totally different voice. Phillip Dennis is the founder of the Dallas Tea Party. I'm sure he has a different perspective on this. First thing I want to ask you is, what do you want? I mean, do you want the Republicans to just stay at that $61 billion number and not budge an inch?
What we want is our government to spend less money than it takes in revenues, just like we must do to live our lives. That's exactly what we want. And that is, if that's extremism, if that is out of touch, well, then all of America is out of touch, because that's the way we live our lives.
I hear you, and I'd love to have that conversation. We might in a second. But what I'm asking is a very specific question. You got these budget negotiations. Democrats have given, $40 billion, $4 billion, $6 billion, $20 billion. The Republicans haven't moved an inch. So do you want them to move at all, or do you not want them to move and say, no, even though this is supposed to be a negotiation, we will not give in anything?
We have a $1.65 trillion deficit this year alone. Last year, we had a $1.5 trillion deficit, which means that we are printing or borrowing over $5 billion a day to keep this government running. And you're bragging because the Democrats want to cut 4 days of borrowing? I say to the Republicans, you need to do a lot more.
You got to answer the question. I hear you, but I'm asking you. So you wouldn't budge? You're saying no, you wouldn't budge.
Well, the Republicans promised in the campaign season to cut $100 billion in spending, which to most Tea Party people out here, we think that's just basically ridiculous when we've got a $1.65 trillion deficit.
So you
now
wouldn't
they've
budge.
backed off of that to $61 billion.
So you wouldn't budge an inch?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so how are they supposed to negotiate?
The Republicans,
hey, look, Phillip, you guys claim that you're into business and stuff like that, and you understand it. You know, I run a small business. My dad's run a small business for a long time. I know you get into negotiations, right? And in negotiations, usually, you have to come to some sort of agreement. If one side says, I won't budge at all, well, you're not going to have an agreement. Isn't that right?
Let me ask you this. In your father's business, if he made $12,000 a month, did he spend $13,100 or $650 a month? And how long was he going to do that?
But Phillip, I'm trying to get you to answer a question. So just tell me, if you're in a negotiation, if you're in business, and you say I won't give in anything at all, do you think you're going to have a deal, or you're likely to not have a deal?
Hey, listen, let the Democrats do what they vote and let the Republicans vote the way they did. I don't know what anybody missed in November with the elections there. We sent a bunch of Democrats home, and this time we're going to send a bunch of Republicans home if they don't do what we sent them up there to do, which was to repeal Obamacare and to reduce the spending dramatically, and not this $61 billion stuff. Like I said, we've got a $1.65 trillion deficit. It is not sustainable.
So even if they actually got 100% of what they wanted, you still wouldn't be satisfied, because you're saying the $61 billion isn't enough.
No, absolutely not. We've got a $1.65 trillion deficit. I mean, how much more money do you people want to spend and borrow?
Okay, so Boehner was a disappointment to you no matter what then, right? Because he's only asking for $61 billion.
So far, absolutely. That's been a tremendous disappointment to us, but we knew what we were getting with them.
So you would shut the government down then? You would shut it down because you're...
Shut it down.
Oh, shut it down, right?
Shut it down.
All right, you're very clear about that.
Until the Republicans and the Democrats that go to Washington, D.C. can learn to spend $1 less than the government takes in revenue. We don't have a revenue problem in Washington. We've got a spending problem, and it is unsustainable. How many secretaries of the Treasury have to come out and say this debt is not sustainable before somebody in Washington, D.C. listens?
Let me address that for one quick second here. You know, you've been making that point throughout. Now, you know that non-defense discretionary spending is only $610 billion, and the deficit overall is over $1.6 trillion. So if you cut it to zero, you got everything you wanted. They cut all the programs. EPA gone, Department of Education gone, everything is gone, right? Zero. You still would have about $1 trillion. So how are you going to balance this thing without either going into defense or raising taxes?
I think most people on the Tea Party side would like to see across the board cuts, and everything is on the table for cuts. Look, we have to totally revise the way Washington does business, because it has gotten fat and it has gotten large and it has gotten away from what the Constitution advocates, and that's what we're for.
You would cut defense.
Absolutely. I would cut defense.
Good.
I would cut
we have agreement
a lot of
on
things.
That. Good. We have agreement on that. But you see,
but there would be a lot of other cuts too, like you mentioned.
Look, and you know, right now we're in historically low taxes as a percentage of GDP, et cetera. But you're still saying not low enough. You still want to cut taxes and give us a bigger cutting thing that we got to get past. So you'd really, really have to cut the heck out of defense.
Now, wait a minute. I haven't said anything about taxes at all. You said that. We're not adverse to paying taxes. We're adverse to paying our fair share. But the Tea Party...
So you don't mind raising taxes if it's necessary?
Yeah, well, we will absolutely if it's necessary,
Okay,
but we have
great.
so much. Our government has gotten so much larger since Bush and Obama and their administrations, and Americans that pay the bills, that create the wealth out there, that are seeing their children's futures mortgaged so these people can spend money like drunken sailors. The only difference is drunken sailors spend their own money. That we are tired of it. We sent the Republicans to change that, and if they're not going to make the big boy decisions we sent them up there to make, we're going to get bigger boys in 2012. If the Democrats want to stand by this, oh, the Republicans and the Tea Party are extremists for wanting to cut spending, then let them stand by their votes. We sent a whole bunch of them home last time, and we'll do more this time.
All right. Look, Phillip, I don't agree with a lot of what you're saying, but those last 2 points I respect because it's honest, because you can't do it from non-defense discretionary spending. You just can't. So if you're willing to go after defense and you're willing to say, hey, we should look at the revenue side, that's at least an honest conversation. So
hey, we spent $600 billion in Libya over the last week, and no one knows what we're doing there, not even the president.
That's a separate conversation. We'll do that on another night. Phillip, Dennis, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.